I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York. I'd like to start this special board meeting by thanking everyone for being here in the midsummer. I'd like to read the following notice into the record of this public meeting. The meetings of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York are open to the public, and the Board welcomes the interest of those who attend. The Board must carry out the functions assigned to it by law, and therefore cannot tolerate conduct by members of the public that disrupts its meetings. In the event of disruptions, including noise, which interferes with Board discussion, after appropriate warning, I will ask the security staff to remove persons engaging in disruptive conduct. The university may seek disciplinary and/or criminal sanctions against persons who engage in conduct that violates the university's rules or state laws which prohibit interference with the work of public bodies. I'd like now to request that everyone take a moment to mute your cell phone or a BlackBerry. Thank you very much. As usual, CUNY TV is transmitting this afternoon's special board meeting live on cable channel 75. This meeting is also being webcast live and can be accessed by going to www.cuny.edu. This board meeting will be available as a podcast within 24 hours and can also be accessed via the CUNY website. I would like now to introduce a motion to approve the resolution entitled The Revised Tuition Schedule Effective Fall 2011. You have copies of this resolution and the attached schedule at the table. This resolution has also been posted on the CUNY website consistent with the open meetings law. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'd like now to call on Chancellor Goldstein. Professor Crane, we've had the benefit of understanding your views thanks to the written statement that you provided to the trustees at the public meeting, and we've all read it with care. If you cannot control yourself and have to make noise,
why don't you control
I will have to ask security personnel. I will have to ask security personnel.
You don't represent the interests of CUNY. You don't represent CUNY students.
I'd like now to ask Chancellor Goldstein.
That you are voting for tuition increases while people are having trouble getting into the college classroom at all. It is disgusting that you speak about this as if you have any shred of legitimacy to decide the
Professor Crane, second warning.
No tuition increase.
I'm sorry, Professor Crane. I'm going to have to ask security personnel to remove you from the room.
If you need to loosen up some money, why don't you get rid of these high administrational salaries?
Where's customer salaries? Where are your priorities?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to give some background on the actions a meeting of the executive committee.
All right, folks. This is a warning that I will ask you to be removed if you continue to clap.
Mr. Chairman, a meeting of the Executive Committee of the Board was called for July 21st to consider a revised tuition schedule based on a new state legislation authorizing CUNY to implement a rational tuition policy by increasing tuition up to $300 annually for the next 5 years. A public hearing was held by the Executive Committee on July 20th. I'd like to thank...
You're out. Please remove this gentleman.
Shame on them. Shame
I'd like to thank Vice Chair Berry and Trustee DiMartino for their participation in that hearing. The Executive Committee then met on July 21st and authorized a new tuition
This is
fall 2011.
This is a second warning for those who are clapping.
My thanks to all of the Executive Committee members for taking the time to meet on the 21st. On July 26th, a state Supreme Court judge responding to a lawsuit filed by several students issued a temporary restraining order prohibiting the implementation of the tuition schedule approved by the Executive Committee unless and until the full Board of Trustees meets and votes on the schedule. Because the full board does not meet until late September, and because time is of the essence, it was determined that a special meeting of the full board should be convened for this purpose. Again, I'm grateful to our board members for responding so quickly to this need. But, Mr. Chairman, before I describe the components of the state's plan, I would like to give the board some background about how tuition for the City University of New York, and indeed for the State University of New York, has historically been set. I think the historical context will help to shed some light on the reasons that the governor, with the input from the state legislature, adopted the model that we are considering tonight, one for which I have been strenuously advocating for nearly a decade. In the past, the setting of tuition levels at CUNY and SUNY was done in a very haphazard way. In some years, there were very steep tuition increases, 15%, 20%, and indeed even 30%. While in other years, sometimes over a period of consecutive years, there would be no tuition increase. The reason is that the state would generally raise tuition when it was in a precarious financial position, leading to sudden and significant increases. On some occasions, the tuition increases were so high that students were forced to leave the university because they could not quickly find additional financial resources. I have always believed that we need to have a predictable policy for tuition in order to allow for appropriate planning, both by students and their families and by the university. It is justly unfair that students, whether living at home with their families or living on their own, do not have the ability to plan for tuition increases, especially since most of them are struggling scarce resources for competing needs. At the same time, the university should have the ability to plan for how to provide assistance for students beyond the financial assistance offered by state or federal governments, particularly for those students who may be put in harm's way because of escalating costs. For years, I have urged state officials to adopt a more predictable and rational approach to setting tuition levels, what we call at CUNY the CUNY Compact model. Finally, this year, the governor came forward with a plan that was adopted by the state legislature. The plan allows the university to raise tuition up to $300 per year for full-time in-state undergraduate students and a proportionate amount for non-resident graduate, doctoral, per credit, and selected program rates. This recommendation is very consistent with the CUNY Compact approach of establishing a rational and a predictable policy for setting tuition targets. It allows students and families to plan for the cost of a college education, and it will allow the university more effectively to activate other sources of income. For example, donors have often asked, why should they provide significant support for the university if the state is not willing to meet its obligations? This 5-year plan is a strong statement to the wider community that the state is indeed investing in CUNY and in SUNY. Let me mention some important aspects of the state's plan. Let me mention important aspects of the state's plan.
Be quiet. Be quiet, or I will ask that you be removed.
One is the maintenance of effort commitment to the university.
Second warning.
We already know what your decision's going to be.
One is the maintenance of
All right.
effort commitment to the university.
Bill, Dave, thank you.
Abolish the Board of Trustees. Stop silencing the
A bunch of thieves, liars, and thieves. You're robbing us and you're thieves. Robbing us, liars.
Mr. Chairman, let me mention some important aspects of the state's plan. One is the maintenance of effort commitment to the university. Financial support cannot be reduced from prior year levels except in cases of financial exigency. In addition, the state allows the university to keep the revenue from the new tuition rather than returning it to the state, as was often the practice in the past. The new state plan ensures that if a student pays $1 of support, that dollar stays with the university for investment purposes. Finally, the plan also ensures that the state will continue to fund universities' mandatory costs, such as collective bargaining increases and energy increases. A critical part of this 5-year plan is that it addresses the importance of financial aid as a component of any tuition increase. The plan stipulates that if students are now receiving the maximum award from the state's tuition assistance program, called TAP, they will not have to pay the increase. If students are receiving less than the full TAP award, say 80% of full TAP or 60% of full TAP, the increase will be reduced proportionately. So part of the revenue that the university receives from this increase is going directly to support students who are at most risk. I have always emphasized that the neediest students should not be impeded in their pursuit of a degree because of a tuition increase. The state's plan is consistent with that caveat. And because the plan will enable us to increase our philanthropic efforts, we will be able to direct more of those resources to assist students in need. I should also note that consistent with the adopted state budget and the recent federal debt ceiling agreement, both TAP and the federal Pell Grant program are funded for next year. As you can see, this is a bold step forward for the state of New York, a fundamentally different approach to investing in higher education, and for that reason, Mr. Chairman, I think it is important for us to support this approach tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for the Chancellor or comments? If not, I'd like to ask for a vote to approve this resolution. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Resolution carries. That concludes the public business of this special meeting of the board. Thank you very much.